Hi everyone, I'm Anthony O'Flynn. Hope you're all doing great. Haven't been making many videos or running many events, workshops, retreats, etc. In recent times because I have actually been renovating 2 properties at once, which is it's been pretty overwhelming, but I have been working with the transits, particularly as it relates to my own personal natal chart, with Jupiter being in Taurus, and so that's really been in the flow for doing things at a practical level in the real world, in the physical dimension. So the good news is one of those has pretty much been finished now, so I do intend in the second half of this year of launching a whole new type of event, which I'll speak about more in the spring. But yeah, it's very time consuming. Obviously, it always takes longer to do these things, and it's worth it in the end always. But yeah, it is very time consuming, particularly when you're working with body corporates and so on and strata titles, which is if you've ever had anything to do with that, you know that it's very time consuming, and a lot of the admin and the bureaucracy really slows the whole process down. But that's part of the journey around that. So anyway. A lot of people have been really, it's been a real talking point about, for the King's birthday honours, that Daniel Andrews has been awarded the Companion Order of Australia, which is effectively Australia's highest civilian honour. And there's been a lot of outrage about it, that he shouldn't get this award, and that his legacy is just so completely tainted in the total destruction of Victoria. The consequences in the wake of what one sociopath can do is in no way deserved of any honour or award whatsoever. And yet he has been awarded that, along with Mark McGowan from Western Australia, the Premier during the COVID era as well. So, so in this video I'll be talking about at least why, at a causal level, these sorts of things occur during this time. Because if we don't understand things at a causal level, we can really only look at the effect, which is what most people are doing. The effect is that this man with a crazy legacy, like the legacy is just absolutely unbelievable what is left in his wake. Just to give you a few facts, the current Victorian debt is 156 billion. By 2028, it's going to be $187 billion. The daily interest bill is currently 15 million, and that's going to increase to 25 million by 2027. And it's quite staggering when you look at what the ability of what one person can do to affect millions of people. But part of this is because of the complete apathy of Australians, and also, let's not forget that he was voted back in, re-elected during the COVID era, and the reality is that most people approved of the lockdowns, of the restrictions and everything at the time. So this Stockholm syndrome, or cognitive dissonance, or just complete apathy, a combination of all those three, has led Victoria to the state where it is today, where it is a state that is basically a failed state. If it was a business, it would be made bankrupt and be in administration by now. So the people of Victoria have been burdened with this, the legacy of Daniel Andrews, but at the same time, the majority of people endorsed it at the time, but people aren't able to see the consequences of the destructive path of what one man can take, who has the ability to simply enact this kind of policies that are going to have catastrophic events in the future. And this is only really just beginning. So if you've got an interest bill of $15 million a day, I mean, it's a kind of insane amount of money to be paying in interest only, let alone the capital. And not only that, it's going to increase, isn't it? Like, it's going to increase from 156 billion to 187 billion by 2027, 2028. So the debt's only getting bigger. The point of this video is really to discuss, how is it so that someone whose legacy, let's go through the more information on this to give you an idea of just how bad it was. Over 260 days of lockdown in Melbourne, 768 people dead after hotel quarantine failure. Many kids today haven't recovered and have many mental health issues, behavioural issues, because of the severity of the lockdowns. The health system's completely crippled. I've seen posts on social media of ambulances in ramping, what they call ramping, where there's people in the ambulances not able even to get into the hospital. All kinds of problems with the health system. The hollowing out of the Melbourne's culture, and once regarded as the world's most livable city, with all the restaurants, bars, cafes that have closed, homeless people everywhere, people affected by drugs, drug addiction openly in the streets. The social failure of the policies are just everywhere to be seen. Lockdowns led to huge suicides, loss of SMEs, small, medium enterprises. People basically lost their businesses directly because of a lockdown. I mean, what do you expect? And this is the whole problem with this left-wing socialist mentality that really emanates from Melbourne, is that this money just grows on trees because it comes from the taxpayer. What do you think happens when you stop the taxpayer from actually working and running their business so they can't make a profit and therefore pay their taxes? The tax base just plummets, and also, you know, the whole unemployment goes up and underemployment and so on. I mean, some of these laws that they've made, the new land tax laws, are so severe that I read by one analyst that up to 1 in 4 investment properties are now being sold in Victoria because just basically they're killing private investment, killing entrepreneurship, killing the profit motive because of these socialist values, and yet people seem to think it's a great idea. Well, the effects of this are going to be huge. Huge debt from infrastructure cost blowouts. Let's not forget the cancelling of the Commonwealth Games. I've never even heard of anything like this ever happening, like an event like this being cancelled by the host city. Maybe it has, not that I've heard of. And the questionable union demands that led to these cost blowouts, all this kind of crony capitalism that's baked into the system. Now there's high density ghettos in Melbourne. He's even been like investigated for corruption, and all the other social, political, economic issues that basically is Daniel Andrews' legacy. And yet at the same time, this guy is basically given the Companion Order of Australia, which is Australia's highest civilian honour. How can that be? Well, that's the effect. What's the cause? And that's what we're going to look at here now, is the cause. Until we understand the cycles of time and the age what we're living in terms of vast cycles, we can't really comprehend how a twisted sociopath like Daniel Andrews could actually, one, become the leader of a state and then be handsomely paid, like he was increasing his salary during it, and then have a huge pension at the end of it, and then actually be given an award. But who's the award by? And this is the first esoteric point to make on this, is that the award is from the king. I don't know how much the king directly has to do with the actual confirmation of this. Maybe has a lot, maybe has a little. It's besides the point. The point is, in historic times, before the age we're in now, the Iron Age, Kali Yuga, the king was considered to be the wisest soul, the most evolved soul in the society, in the kingdom, in the nation. And so what the king basically decided was based on a superior level of consciousness to the subjects, to the other people that he was in his kingdom. And this is a reflection of being more evolved, being more wise, and being more benevolent. The idea of a benevolent king, which is completely missing in today's society. Okay, the idea of royal families and so on, royalty, it's not as prolific or as prominent as what it used to be. But the idea is that the king symbolized the crown, which was a symbol of Sahasrara, the crown chakra. And some of the rubies and the actual crown itself were helped to activate the third eye and Ajna chakra and the crown chakra, Sahasrara, by way of resonance. Through this idea, even gold itself is considered to be a very, very beneficial metal. Like it it's having some superior qualities, mental qualities, spiritual qualities, and it's also giving a solarity. Like it's a yang metal, so it's giving this ability to emit and perhaps not be influenced by lower entities, lower states of mind, and so on. So this is important because the crown is very symbolic, and the resonance of the crown itself is to give this support, energetic support. And that's where this phrase comes, heavy is the weight of the crown, because of the responsibility of being the leader in this way and carrying the burden of leadership and leading the people. So the king decides it, and then we get this award for Daniel Andrews. And this leads to the next point is that in this Kali Yuga, because it's the lowest age, everything is inverted. So in this way, education is indoctrination, medicine is poison, war is peace, these kind of things. Some of these dictums from George Orwell actually reflect this inversion. So in this time, what is bad or is evil is given a greater emphasis and a greater mobility to act in the world and to affect the world than what is just, what is good, what is righteous, and so on, because of the inversion, because of this inverted state. And this means that Daniel Andrews is the perfect candidate for this award. In fact, this is why I'm making this video, actually, is because this award is a textbook example. I mean, literally, there are many examples, but this is one of the best. That we idolize influencers, celebrities, sports people in our culture, people that often actually don't do anything to really contribute to the society in a more elevated way. It's just entertainment and theatre for the masses. But the political leadership obviously has a much bigger impact and is much more significant. And this example of him winning this award, I mean, it's just an award, and the best way to counter it is really just to laugh at it. Really, I mean, and that's, if you can see, if you're following what I post on social media, is my own personal take on a lot of the things, is just simply to laugh at it and to mock it for the insanity and the inversion that it really is. So this textbook example, which it's not debatable, the legacy that he's given to the people of Victoria and the people of Australia is completely diabolical. And the people of Victoria, Melbourne will not recover from this economic decline and social decline and everything else along with it this decade. I mean, it hasn't even begun to see the ramifications. I mean, it's one of the reasons why so many people from the southern states are moving to Queensland, and that now Brisbane is the second most expensive city for property in Australia after Sydney, and Sydney is now considered to be the second least affordable city in the world for property. I mean, that's a whole other topic, the insanity of the successive federal governments and their whole Ponzi scheme they've created and locked out a whole generation of people from the Ponzi scheme, which is by design, by the way. But I digress. So why is it a textbook example? Because is it a just leader? I mean, to think that the people in Victoria were locked in their homes for over 260 days. And what's even more insane is that many of them, or most of them, endorsed that, actually wanted that. It's remarkable. And it's an example of the power of the indoctrination, but deeper than that, particularly in the context of the COVID era, was the fear. That people's consciousness is so dominated by fear. It's kind of remarkable that really came to the forefront in that time, and it's still there now. It's just that there isn't the activation, there isn't the trigger given to that. It'll show up in other ways every day, but it's still there. It's just, say, less dormant or more dormant at the moment. And so this idea of Kali Yuga means that we are in this inverted reality, which obviously we all go through this period where we are, frustrated about it, unhappy about it. But in my view, a more superior attitude is actually to celebrate it, because as things get increasingly more inverted, if it's even really possible at this point, and it is actually, and it will get more inverted, or the expression of the inversion, I should say, is that it means we're closer to the end of Kali Yuga. And there's academics and even yogis and people who are claiming that we're not in the Iron Age, that we're in Satya Yuga or Dvapara Yuga. I mean, how in Satya Yuga, the biggest sociopath doesn't get awarded for their wake of destruction that they've pain and suffering they've created for millions of people. That doesn't happen. That person doesn't even get to be in a position where they can do that kind of thing. And not only that, that kind of person doesn't even get to incarnate. That soul doesn't get to exist and live in a physical body in Satya Yuga. So, Satya Yuga is the golden age. But as I explain in my book, that as I explain it, it's like two tectonic plates coming over the top of each other. And at this point, the new Earth, the golden age, the Satya Yuga is overriding, or is there is tension, there is friction, but the Iron Age, Kali Yuga, the Dark Age, is going under as this analogy, as I express it, which means it is on its way out. And the worse things get means the closer it is to breaking point, which I've talked about in previous videos. This as another analogy, like this ice cracking, like a cracking. The paradigm we're in cracks. It's visible to everybody that it is completely dysfunctional, and it starts to, I won't say fade out, it'll probably go out with a series of catastrophes of various kinds. Let's just put it like that for today. So yes, Daniel Andrews is very deserved of this award. It's like a symbolic expression for me of the inversion and of the peak of Kali Yuga. How someone like that has, even though he's been investigated for corruption, has never actually been charged, has never been officially put on trial or anything like that. It's remarkable. But this is the era that we're living through. And at a deeper level, it's important to recognize and acknowledge that we've come to experience that, and we've come to experience this decline of this age of darkness, that we are in the culminative stages of that. I still think that this process will go on, which is the premise of my book, until 2040. But how far we are away from this cracking or this splitting, not of the timelines, but of this universal recognition that this paradigm is failing, I would say we're on track for that for this decade. But later on in the decade, we've still got quite a long way to go yet. But this is a example of leadership and what the qualities of that leader embodies in Kali Yuga. And he is a shining example of the darkness, which is a bit of a contradiction, but it's to be expected. And when we actually take a step back from this sort of outrage that people are justifiably having around this award this guy's been given, then we are more we're more in the flow of the universal will, of the divine will. And that is probably one of the most powerful states of consciousness we can be in through this period. That instead of resisting the reality, resisting the manifestation of Kali Yuga, resisting the manifestation of the darkness, we learn to work with it. And we focus on co-creating the new paradigm, on our own projects where we feel inspired, where we feel capable, where we feel motivated and energized. Because that day is coming, and each day that passes is a day we are closer to that. So I look at it as like a temporal marker that we are getting closer to this the end of Kali Yuga. I mean, the leadership around the world, you can see even in Queensland. I'm not suggesting that Anastasia Palaszczuk has been a wonderful leader by any measure, and now we have a child for Premier, Stephen Miles. I mean, again, it's a reflection of Kali Yuga, that this he's unelected, but that's not really his fault because Anastasia Palaszczuk resigned, but that he is completely incapable of being a leader. I mean, this man is a man-child. Like, it's blatantly obvious to everyone. And the same at a federal level with the leadership of Anthony Albanese. I mean, it's quite amazing how someone who's so inept, who is so lacking in the qualities of leadership that we would tick as archetypes, such as courage, such as selflessness, such as, embodying all these qualities that we would regard as archetypal traits of a leader, that actually makes it to be the leader of a nation of Australia. Again, this is the effect at a causal level of Kali Yuga, and the cause is this idea that the darkness is in control, that the darkness is having this expression, because we live in a polarized world. This is at a much deeper level. The reality is that this world is colored by this polarity between good and evil. We at this time are what the universe is asking for us is to recognize, understand, and begin to discern the difference between good and evil. And obviously, the people, Victoria and Australia more broadly, have completely failed to do that during the pandemic, and still today. It's not so obvious to many sections of the population of what's really occurring at this level of embodied light or expression of evil, of the darkness. It's just not, and it's because they themselves don't have this purity of consciousness, this discernment, this ability to actually separate the wheat from the chaff. And this has been a really big theme through the COVID era, and it's going to be an ongoing theme for the whole decade and even into the next decade. But what we're given here is the opportunity to grow. If people are not taking it, then that's their choice at a soul level. But that's the function at a more individual level is, well, how am I able to navigate through this? Am I able to see? Am I able to perceive? And am I able to, at the same time, carry my own light while perceiving the darkness, which again is a huge failing of the New Age movement, which is why there is so much spiritual bypassing in the New Age community, and an inability to work with their own shadow at a personal level, and to actually look into the matters of the collective shadow, to illuminate the shadow, which is obviously at a metaphysical level the ability to perceive good and evil, light and dark, which is in us all, which is fine. But we want to start to understand how these polarities work, and that's what we've come to experience. Not be afraid of the dark, to understand what it is, how it works, and so on, and to embody the light as we move forward into the new paradigm. There's so much more to talk about on this topic. Jupiter is in Gemini now, so I will be trying to make more videos in the second half of this year, particularly in the spring, going forward in the spring. Let's see. But thanks so much for watching. More projects coming up to share with you soon. But good luck and wishing you all the best. Thanks for watching. We live in epic times.